Hello ladies and gentlemen, and fellow pioneers of the Steam store. My name is TotalHabile, and today we'll be diving into the Fermi Paradox. Developed and published by the German developer Anomaly Games. The music in the background is brought to you by TheRelaxedMovement. A link to their channel will be in the description below. Although this is the first title beneath this developer's belt, however, the staffers are industry veterans from the following games: Spec Ops: The Line, Kane and Lynch 2, The Captain is Dead, Dreadnought, and The Sea is Still Wet. From the games listed above, the concept of a probable product for the end user may be rather mixed overall. And I must preface the further word is that this game is currently in early access as of the writing and publishing of this video. Please take note that this is of the build 0.61.b.91 on the 4th of September 2021. During the writing of this video, there was a small update that added several events to the game. However, after reviewing the events through gameplay, I saw fit to not re-record the footage for a newer version of the game that only added several small events to the game, and it appeared to me not to be rather worthwhile to showcase. This game initially appeared during Steam's June Festival of 2021, which was announced by Gabe Newell, president of the Valve Corporation, a festival dedicated to showcase all the indie games of upcoming and future releases, with a bunch of little demos sprinkled all about. And out of all the dozens of games I saw fit to give this game a little closer look, since it is in early access. The premise of the game is that you, the player, take the role of the so-called Galactic Gardener, essentially a cosmic level intelligence or god, and must guide a couple of civilizations through several evolutionary periods, till ultimately one of three endings are achieved. The ultimate goal is to essentially create galactic harmony by making the space internet. Gameplay is rather intense, as you must click on icons, then do the same thing again and again for the next 2.5 hours. Jokes aside, it is rather simplistic. It is more akin to Reigns, a series developed by Naira and published by Devolver Digital. I honestly would consider playing that game. The Fermi Paradox is what I would classify as a resource-based game, where the player must balance a set number of resources, otherwise they will lose the game. This game does have a few twists on gameplay mechanics, however. For example, each planet and colonial fleet have their own unique resource gauges, instead of a single set like Reigns. These gauges would be overall technology level, population, current era's resources, harm potential, and the utopian/dystopian status. You go about adjusting these gauges through selecting one of 3 randomly generated nodes. Each time you do, the corresponding gauge will either decrease or increase its value by a set percentage while removing the other 2 nodes for 3 new ones. The other twist on gameplay is that there is an overall resource called synthesis. This is an event currency which, when you receive an event, you can spend said currency for a good outcome or receive more currency for a negative outcome to spend later for a possible good outcome. For example, you can receive the event called consumption, a generic event that you will get here and there time and again, where the player must choose between a varying degrees of resource depletion to represent the species uses of the planetary resources, or if you are in a fleet, your reserves. Please do note that each node in these events is 2 to 3 times more than the regular nodes that you click on when you're just zoomed in. It would honestly be great if that in these events that the icons were colored a little bit more differently to showcase that these mean a whole lot more than the regular nodes that you get as you're just waiting for stuff to happen. Next up is story, which sadly this game doesn't really have a story, even though it features an overall narrative. I wouldn't even count it as bare bones, it's just non-existent, yet they state in the game's description on the Steam store page that each playthrough will become unique as decisions, which are tied to gauges however, will influence further things. This only creates a problem as the player wants only the gauges to be balanced so that they can get to the game to have their victory. Can you see the problem here? Because I definitely can. I feel the system is rather lackluster, and it doesn't feel like any true story, nor does it give each playthrough its own unique feel after you understand the underbelly of the game. Because ultimately, you want 4 civilizations to reach the final technology level and create the space internet, which somehow makes galactic harmony. Which in itself feels rather dumb, because when humanity created the internet, it didn't end the chaos that goes on here on Earth. So why do I believe it's going to happen in space? What I feel like that the game should be more towards when it's trying to create this overall narrative is that there should be a diffusion between events and resources, which say sensitive points should really be more used to having a species nudge with events that can happen organically, or it can happen by the player themselves. Like, for example, let's have a species be nudged towards global unification. It could lead to being stuck in nation states, or it could lead to their own United Nations or sorts. It could lead to a one world government, or it could lead to like unification wars or something. That makes it a lot more interesting than just getting a small paragraph of text that only gets like swapped a few words out of, and it just doesn't seem genuine. Like, that's not story, it's just generic. So why should I really care about the story when the only thing that truly matters in the game is the gauges? I don't care if a planet is in a dystopia or utopia. I don't care. I want the little resources to be right where I want them to be. The visual style of the game is rather unique, as it gives this concept art vibe that really sets in the idea that you, the player, are going to have an interesting time as you play the game. All the little pieces of art show for each little event are honestly really lovely to look at. The only problem that I have that I feel like is when the events or technology improvements should be more representative of the species themselves that is currently having the events, not just like, here's the space gorillas in the cyberpunk age when it's supposed to be the humans who just entered the cyberpunk age. It honestly kind of takes me a little bit out of it. I would like to see like what would they be like going through this era of technology, because not all species would go through it the same way. It's just those little things right there that really kind of take me out of it with the art style, but it would be great if they actually did something more with that. One thing I do have to point out though with the whole visuals, there is a visual bug going on, and from what I've seen in the Steam reviews, other people are having it too, where for some reason even they get close, the species just appear naked. Like, for example, in the footage behind you, you probably would have seen like the humans being naked when they're like in the medieval age or in the space age or whatever. There will be a link in the description below of the full playthrough used in this background if y'all want to watch it and have pure gameplay with no commentary. Another thing I want to kind of touch on in this little segment is that the sound design for what music that there is in this game is rather ambient and it sounds nice. However, to me, ambient is just ambience. It's not actual like filler music, and a lot of times it just seems dull. And the only time the music seems to actually change is like when the events, and even then you only actually start to feel something when it's actually a bad event like a world war or a total extinction level of event going on. While there should be also, good events and have like a triumphant sound or something like that, give a little bit more than just it sounds doleful. And I would really appreciate if they added more actual sounds to the game. In total, I find things to be rather mixed about this game when I'm considering it if it should be given a recommendation or not. First, the game possesses a very lovely and unique art style that is reminiscent of concept art that gives an overall hopeful feel and noble bright setting to which developers are responsible for trying to create. After all, you're trying to create galactic harmony and you want a bright setting. That's completely understandable, but the main downside is that there's not a whole lot of graphical assets currently. Now, they can add more in the future, but I still think that they should make more assets akin to the species that's going through the events, and so on and so forth. Second is that there's really no narrative. This is after playing the game for close to 8 hours and over 5 playthroughs. For a game that suggests having over 400 different events in the game, there seems to be not a whole lot, as the same ones keep happening over and over again. I don't know if there's a rarity or if it requires special parameters for some events to fire, but I see nothing. It'd be nice if there was like a catalog on the main menu to show you like if you need X to happen to get X event. It would be great if there was something like that on the main menu. It'd also be great if there was a little page on the main menu where you can see all the art. But let's get back to the narrative part of the game. There really is none, and it'll be amazing if they can actually give an overall narrative to the game. Like, say, like, if it's supposed to be noble, bright, let's explore the universe. Let's give more events of, like, the species wanting to go out there and explore instead of just, well, we just want to build a colony ship just because. Something a little more, please. And lastly, and more importantly, the game feels rather short for what you pay for. For almost $19 US or your local regional equivalent, the game playthrough lasts, at most, after dragging it out, about 3 hours. And as with me abusing game mechanics to have the bugs where I get infinite synthesis points, it's just doleful, and I honestly have no interest of playing it even further. I'll play it when the game fully hits 1.0 to see what's been addressed, but beyond that, I have no interest of wanting to play the game. In a realm of sci-fi where there's supposed to be wonder and you have a noble bright setting going on, it is awfully dull and very lackluster in general to justify the $18.99 asking price on Steam. So I find it really hard to justify the purchase of this game due to the reasons I stated above. Therefore, I cannot recommend this game in its current state in a good conscience. Does it mean it's a bad game? No. The main problem is that the game is still somewhat in its infancy. Thus, it has a lot of potential, and with the developers constantly giving it updates, that's pretty good. It's just that for what you're paying now, for what you're getting, it's just not worth it. I would suggest either holding off and seeing how it progresses before you actually dip your toes into the game, or just move on to something else. Now, I do have to state before closing out this segment that I do know it is an early access game. That means not everything that is supposed to be in the 1.0 status is in the game yet. However, I do have to say this. Whenever a product starts to charge money, it is therefore open itself to critique and criticism, regardless of its finished state or not. It is what you're buying at that moment, and you have to tell how it is, regardless of the promises that are in the future. Because there's a lot of early access games where they're just pump and dump. They just make them just to get a quick buck and never ever fix them. So I want to actually go about and justifying the actual purchase of these games. So in total, my final verdict is not recommended, since I cannot in good conscience recommend this game in its current state. The price to content is simply not there, and after one playthrough, the game loses its charm rather fast. However, if you like to take a closer look at this game and figured you would like to play the game yourself, there will be a link in the description below to the Steam store to the game. As of the making of this video, the game is currently for $18.99 USD, or your local regional equivalent. I want to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching the video. If you'd like to help support the channel and like to become a Steam Store pioneer today, consider subscribing to the channel and clicking the bell to stay up to date to our informational segments. Down below in the video description, we'll have a link to the full playthrough of the game if you wish to see pure gameplay with no commentary. There will also be links to the Steam Store page of the game, the Steam group page, and Twitter. My name has been TotalHabile, and I will see you all next time.